Call this meeting to order. Those in the HQ, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any adjustments to the agenda? Commissioners? I don't have any. All right. Chair entertains a motion to approve the agenda.
Yes.
Motion made by Commissioner Commissioner Rowland. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernahoff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. We have a payroll summary and authorization for June 2023 and claim vouchers 13875 to 13944 totaling $706,082.83.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Rowland. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. On to the meeting minutes. We have the May 9th, 2023 work session and the May 16th, 2023 regular meeting. Are there any adjustments? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 9th and May 16th.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lawrence. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernahoff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say, all right, motion carries. Public comment. Do we have anybody online? We have 0 attendees online. All right, and I don't believe we have anybody in the gallery. So
I have not been contacted by anyone.
Okay, thank you. So we will go along into the fire chief's report with Assistant Chief Eastman.
Good evening, Chair and rest of the board and public. Chief's report is going to be brief tonight. Just a quick update, looking at the just preliminary information for the 4th of July. We looked at just the data from July 4th at 4 o'clock till July 5th at 10 a.m. We had about 45 fire responses. Majority of those were brush, vegetative. A handful of those were either fire residential, fire commercial, but they were almost all of them were started as a result of outside structure. So it was vegetation that actually started the fire and impinged onto the infrastructure on the building. Nothing past that for those 2 days. Actually no injuries have been noted. So no injuries that were reported as a result of the weekend. And right now they're looking at initially 9 of those had fireworks involvement. I'm sure that will, as they continue to do the work, there'll be more. We're waiting and we'll give a more thorough report once we get the information from Snow 911 in the sheriff's office. So you guys know, we had 2 officers doing some education and going to the places that historically have had the most discharge, or what we identified the neighborhoods of having discharge. And we're out and about on Saturday, and then we had 4 officers out and about on Monday. And we were not getting anybody to come and work overtime on the 4th. But you had, I want to say, myself, Chief Maxwell, Chief Isotelo, Chief Anderson, Chief Curtis, MSO Keene, and then our 2 deputy fire marshals were here for the majority off and on the afternoon. And you had folks that were actually working during the day. So we had a fire presence through the 4th till about midnight. And then a handful of others were around till about 2 a.m. As we go. So more information to come on that. That's kind of I will tell you, there was a lot of fireworks going off. And I think from my perspective, and Sean, I think you would concur, there was a lot of booms and a lot of fireworks happening. But I will tell you, the call load was not as bad as it has been in years past, at least from my experience. Our EMS call demand stayed relatively quiet. relatively the same. And knowing what the fire conditions were, and we had red flag conditions on the 4th, we actually anticipate things to be far worse than we were. And we were very, very fortunate, just based on the weather conditions. We had red flag conditions on the 4th, and we had them again today. And I think we get a little bit of relief, moving forward. So, all in all, I think we were very, very fortunate considering all the other things that were going on. Chief Isatel and the rest of the staff, including Sean Marie and Leslie, will give a more thorough update when we get the rest of the information from 911 and the sheriff's office. So, and one important thing to note, and I believe you guys got an email sent the morning after, we had a double fatality fire down on Malt Lake Terrace on the 3rd. Came in at about 10:30 in the evening. Currently still under investigation. Deputy Fire Marshal Sherman is our lead investigator on it. They did bring in the ATF, and so the ATF and Malt Lake Terrace PD and Deputy Fire Marshal Sherman are continuing the investigative component of that. And as soon as we get any more updates, we'll let you know on that event. Yeah.
Just how common is that the ATF is brought in on fire investigations?
I think we call the ATF specifically with fatalities or fires that are very complex or strange. I guess strange, maybe that's not the right term. And we have a really good working relationship with the ATF. And so that's not uncommon for us to reach out, not necessarily have them formally. This was a formal request, came on scene. I want to say they were on scene until after 5:30 in the morning, doing the work they were doing. So it's not uncommon for us to bring in ATF.
What's their role when they do come off? Just more curiosity.
They bring expertise. They tend to have, they see a lot more because they investigate a lot more fires in the state than our investigators do. And so it's another set of eyes. And with law enforcement, obviously, depending on where it goes and what they see, there's, if there's a criminal aspect to what they see, there's all sorts of variables of why you bring in experts from other and do it collaborative. But in this case, not surprising that Deputy Fire Marshal Sherman, requested. Obviously, Malt Lake Terrace PD was already there, but for them to request ATF was not surprising based on what they had and the results of the fire. So that's what I got for the 4th of July. I do. Chris G has a quick IT security update that I'm going to let him give real quick.
Good evening. Just wanted to provide a quick update. So we had come before you guys and just said we were going to be in bringing in the state auditor's office to do an IT audit. In addition to that, we actually brought in a third party who could get results to us faster. They completed that assessment. We did get the results and the report back. We're in the process of reviewing that stuff now. Overall, there wasn't really anything critical found, which was good. Nothing critical on the external vulnerabilities side of things. Internally, the main things they found are literally just policy changes that we need to enable. Definitely need to be done. We've already made some of those changes and we're working forward to make the rest of them to put us in a better security spot. But ultimately nothing super critical found per the auditor and stuff like that. The one thing to note on that is we do have several different security platforms in place, monitoring systems in place. You always have these things in place, but you rarely get the chance to actually test them. It was nice to see that when they were actually running their tools to try and infiltrate our systems, we actually got alerts from our systems. It was over Memorial Day weekend. I was actually at the zoo with my family and I got a call from one of our security vendors saying something's going on. Are you guys aware of something happening? So I was able to get on the phone with the vendor that was doing the audit, found out it was them, but it was nice to know that had it actually been something that was happening, our platforms are working as intended. And, you rarely get the chance to actually test those out when something's going on. So that was nice to know. And then just one other quick update was we are still doing the audit with the state auditor's office. I had my first call with them last week. I'm hoping I think it's going to offer something more in depth than what they did. You know, they're asking and they're going through a bunch of questionnaires, which this other company didn't do. They primarily just tried to get in, tried to see what was going on and things like that. So I think it'll still be a value, and you can expect to hear from us over time here, and also you know, when it's done in 7 to 9 months or whatever time frame they gave. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, but that's pretty much it for now.
None for me. Commissioner Kenny.
So the private audit's been completed, and when did the private audit start?
I don't recall exactly when it started, but it was done within about 3 to 4 weeks of when it started. So I think it was end of May, if not the first week of June.
That's what I thought you were going to say. So
Yeah.
private audit wrapped up in about 4 weeks, and the public audit is going to.
Yeah.
Hasn't started yet. It's going to take, did you say like 9 months?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Well,
I hope
glad
that
you-
we'll still
I'm glad-
get something of value out of it, but yes, definitely a difference in time.
I'm very glad you did the private audit. But we'll hope for the best on the
Yeah.
state auditor's office audit too. That's right. That's not a bad thing.
Thank you,
Alright.
Chris.
Thank you.
And the last thing is Chief Maxwell, we have a unique opportunity with an academic study, and I guess I'm just going to turn over and let him give you a brief overview, and it's actually very exciting because they're reaching out to us. And it's a testament for who we are as an agency and what we've done. So Sean, with that.
Yeah, thanks. So a well-known researcher nationally referred us to Vanderbilt University. We all know we did really well with our cardiac arrest save rate. So the next thing would be working with cardiac patients or heart attack patients. And they just received National Institute of Health, which is kind of the premier federal researching agency in our country. They wanted to do 12 sites to look at how we can use feedback with medics to improve cardiac care. And it's a feasibility study. And so we did our initial meeting with them, and they want to use us as the first of the 12 sites. They're going to do all the work. We just work with them. But for us, it's pretty exciting because we've identified our top 12 critical conditions where we can make a difference in someone's life. And now to have Vanderbilt and the NIH coming to fund a study to help us with that, it's pretty exciting. And that they chose us to be the first ones in the nation to do it with is even more exciting because I think we have our act together. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so
Good
this
deal,
is
Sean.
this is academia number 2. We are also partnering with the University of Kentucky doing some research that they got from a FEMA grant. So in a matter of 6 months, we're connected with academia in a way for firefighter safety on one side, University of Kentucky, and patient advocacy and improving patient outcomes from the University of Vanderbilt. So not very many fire departments get to say that. I think that's a testament to the governance, to the leadership, to the great work the men and women in the streets do for us. So exciting. And I think that's the beginning. And I think once you start that work, you get opportunities to continue that and quite frankly, change not only the safety and all those sides on one side, but doing it better for the patients we're here to serve. So
The research shows if you are working with academia and you're doing research, you provide a better level of care. It's just a natural consequence. If you're working with academia and you're doing research, it makes you better. So, yes.
Actually, a follow-up to the kind of the figures that you gave. I had a question around, it was what, 63% chance, something 61, 63, compared to the national average, which was 34. Having thought on it, I had a question around that, and that was, when we think of rural areas where people are a long ways away from maybe their EMS or fire department, that would obviously be a lower rate. And so the 34 seems to be an average across, sparsely populated, long response times versus areas that are metro like ours. How do we compare? What's kind of standard Seattle, LA, the metros that are comparable size? I know LA and Seattle are much bigger and have their own complexities to it, but what do those numbers look like compared to the rural? Is that something where we're
No,
still leading, but not as much as that 34 or?
actually, I would say it is representative of a really good number. Most of the rural areas, they don't have the capacity to even report.
Oh, okay.
So it's generally, I mean, of course, there's outliers, but it's generally the urban centers that are able to do this. So I would say this is a predominantly metropolitan urban setting that, because not everybody, we had to do a lot of work to, and Commissioner Kenny, when during the Bothell annexation stuff, we wanted an outside source to validate the quality of care we did. And so it was actually during there, we leaned in and started reporting to the system. We didn't even report to it about 2012. We're out them. So,
Thank
but it was, we were looking for an external validator of how we did. But before that, we didn't even, that wasn't the only reason, but part of the catalyst.
Interesting. Well, great. Thank you.
Yeah. And Seattle hasn't, they're behind on their data, so they haven't reported. So I don't know.
It's
Commissioner Kenny?
Chief, I wasn't quite sure. What is it exactly that Vanderbilt University wants to study regarding cardiac issues?
Yeah,
I just
Maxwell,
wasn't
right?
quite clear. on
Yeah.
that.
You know Maxwell, right? He's at Hovis.
Did I say Hovis? He's on vacation, isn't he?
Right.
He's gonna channel in. He's gonna. Yeah, exactly. He's here in spirit.
What's funny is I didn't even notice. So I just respond to anything.
There you
apparently.
go. Chief Maxwell.
So there's been a lot of research to show that, well, in fact, I was reading a study today. You have better cardiac arrest outcomes when you do a debriefing and feedback. So systems that do debriefings and feedbacks after a cardiac arrest have better cardiac arrest survival, even neurological survival. So debriefing and feedback is super, it's been identified as a super powerful catalyst for improving quality. And what they want to do is focus in on our cardiac care. So when we go on heart attacks or STEMIs, they're working with the hospital system, getting that feedback, feeding it back to the paramedics and saying, this is how you did, you're correct on this, or you missed that. And it's that feedback loop. So my dream would be, like I said, on all of our checklist conditions, the dozen or so, but it's hard to put together. And so there, we're going to focus on cardiac and do that.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
Does that make, is that enough?
That helps me think about it. So that's good.
I could talk about it all night long if you want. I love this.
I
This
think
is,
you could.
this is my passion. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Good.
Yeah, improving that quality. It's exciting to see when you do something and we save more lives, or we just improve that service to our citizens in a very measurable way, I guess, not just saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So, good.
Well, we appreciate having passionate people that put that into action here. So
Right.
thank you.
So that concludes the chief's report tonight.
Thank you. I have one question for you with regard to the MLT incident. What is the projected timeline that you would guess?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
2 months, 3 months?
It can be as long as 6 months, and it can be as short as the next couple of weeks. So I honestly, my conversation with Fire Marshal Sherman, and mind you, it was after he was up 24 hours. So is they're working through it, and I don't know if they're doing any testing. I don't know if they're doing any lab work. I didn't get into that kind of detail with
That's
David. So I would assume we should probably have a pretty good idea by the 4-month mark. If that's something significantly different than that, I'll let Chief know. We can update the board, but
Okay,
that's
so up to
pro-
6 months.
yeah, that's
Okay, it's all-
not uncommon for an event like this.
Okay, thank you. And then there's the Edmonds event where it looked like the article that I saw was somebody threw a firecracker out the window of a moving car. There at 8th and Walnut, in downtown Edmonds.
Yeah, it started a bunch of bushes on fire. It was
Yeah.
quite spectacular.
It looked like
um,
it from
yeah.
the pictures.
That's actually one of the few I went. That's one of the ones I went to. So it was all brush. They got it out relatively quickly. It was just spectacular because they were old. I forget the name of the. I
Yeah,
can't remember the
backside
name of the
pictures.
thing, but it gave it 35-foot flames. And so it looked quite impressive. And, if it's a flash fuel, so it goes up really, really quick. And by the time the first engine got there, it was that part of it was over, and they quickly extinguished it. And I don't even think we let the rest of the full alarm get there as a result of it. Didn't impede on the structure at all.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kenny.
Chief Eastman, I wanted to ask a little bit more about the Mount Lake Terrace fire. Was this Lakeshore Drive, is this like above to the east of the old golf course, now the park at Lake Ballinger?
Yeah, it's northeast.
Is that North Shore Drive?
Right.
I believe so, yes. I actually didn't respond. I was listening to it. Chief Isotale was already down in Mount Lake Terrace at the fireworks event. And so from the chief's perspective, we had Chief Isotale, Chief Anderson, and Chief Curtis that were actually on scene. And so what I know about, I got a little brief from Chief Isotale, and I got like I said, I talked to Fire Marshal Sherman and got a little bit of detail to be able to let the board know what happened. And then obviously the press release that I'm sure you guys have seen that Leslie and Sean Reed put out. So
the what other jurisdictions did we call in? Because the press report was like 50 firefighters were there. Who else did we bring in?
It was King County.
So I think it was only Shoreline. I think the majority of the units were us. And I want to say there was 3 units from Shoreline and potentially 1 from North Shore, which is Shoreline now.
Yeah.
Because of the location.
Probably would allow us to do that.
Okay.
And still cover the rest.
Okay. Is this fireworks related?
You know what? My understanding is they don't think so, but they're still doing that investigation component. So
Is there, I know, we've had the 4th, so there's been a lot going on, but a 2 fatality fire is unusual for our work and unfortunate, but I guess fortunately unusual. But it is notable. So I was curious if there is going to be any plans for like a public meeting with the neighbors to talk, because I'm sure there's community concerns about what happened there and some fears around that. Are we going to do anything? in
yeah,
a couple
my
of weeks
apologies.
related to that?
And Shawnery, if she's
She's here.
listening, is going to say, I told you, is yes, her and Leslie, that obviously Leslie's feeling well, but they are planning to do post event like we historically do. And that planning's in progress. And I think my conversation with Shawnery this afternoon about it was they expect to have it well attended as a result of. So yes, they are doing that. I don't know the times, but I'll make sure that we let you guys know when that's happening. And I know that they like to do it within a couple weeks of the event and try to coordinate it. So the first in officer and some of the folks that were there were able to, have those conversations with the public that were there and witnessed it. So yes, that is happening. And I would assume, knowing Leslie and Shawnery, that it will happen as close as appropriate based on what they historically do, and it will resemble what we've done in the past.
Sure. I'm just, and I'm assuming so, but maybe I don't want to assume. I'd encourage you to have the Mount Lake Terrace mayor and city manager involved in that, because I'm sure a 2 fatality fire in the city of Mount Lake Terrace is also a significant event for them as a city, and there could be concerns from the city leadership around that, just in different ways, and they may want to be part of that.
And I do know they were part of the notification, so they've been notified. Part of the fire marshal's work is they have a notification for each one of the cities we represent to make sure that their leadership in the city knows of events of this. So they were notified actually just before you guys were notified, because David sent that email to them, and then I turned around and forwarded it to you. So and I'm sure Shawnery and Leslie keep that in mind, and I'll pass that on, and I know Shawnery's on, so thanks.
So some of the media reports, which we haven't talked about here tonight, I'll have some sad details about what, if they're to be believed, about some what about the events just in general. And so, I didn't know what to expect tonight in terms of, because this happened very recently and the intervening 4th of July. I personally would like to have more of a briefing regarding this once they're, not 4 months from now, but sometime sooner, about what happened. And I just think it's worth drilling down on this type of an incident where it's 2 fatalities, because it doesn't happen that much. So I'd love to see that at a future meeting in the chief's report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll go on to the union report with President Moore.
Good evening, commissioners. I'll keep my report short too, since I gotta hop out of here and myself get to an appointment, but just wanted to let you guys know we've been busy. We've had a couple fundraising events we've been at in the Edmonds area. We've also got another one coming up this Saturday. You guys are more than welcome to attend. We're going to be doing a Fill the Boot campaign. It's going to be in Mill Creek. And it's going to be at it's a new business that's opening up. It's called the Healthy Pet of Mill Creek. It's their grand opening. And so they offered to let us host a Fill the Boot there. So that'll be happening this Friday from 9:30 to 2 p.m. So if you're available and want to swing by and participate, feel free to do that. We'd love it. Outside of that, though, commissioners, not much else to report on. I plan on at the next meeting, at your workshop, plan on bringing the video that we had talked about with you, the burn documentary regarding the PFAS in our bunker gear and uniforms. And so you guys indicated you guys wanted to view that. So I think it'd be a good time to do that. That's what it kind of is looking like anyways on our calendar. With that, I think that's all I have for a report.
I have no questions, commissioners. All right, thank you. And I need to go back to Richard Davis. I accidentally skipped you. So
No worries. Good evening, commissioners. Hope you all had a good holiday. Over the course of the last month, we've done kind of usual fare, made some revisions to the RFA plan that are up for adoption tonight. Dealt with some public records issues, public works issues, and interlocal agreements review and revisions. Aside from that, the one thing that I did want to mention, as you know, Supreme Court issued a flurry of cases at the end of their term. One of the cases actually was fairly interesting, and the timing of it is such that had it come during COVID, it would have really kind of made a significant impact in the workplace. And that case was Groff versus DeJoy. And as you know, during COVID, a number of employees and industries that were subject to mandatory vaccination requirements, such as medical personnel, did seek reasonable accommodations from the requirement to get vaccinated, either on the grounds of a bona fide religious belief or that they had a disability. And at the time, the standard for denying a request for an accommodation was really substantially different depending on whether it was a disability request, disability, or a bona fide religious belief. In order to deny an accommodation based on a disability, the employer would have to demonstrate that it would pose an undue hardship on the employer. It's kind of a high standard. But for religious beliefs, the standard was much lower. It could be denied if it caused more than a de minimis cost to the employer. And that arose out of a case, Supreme Court case, I think it was back in 1972. In any event, the Supreme Court revisited that decision and decided that the term de minimis cost actually meant something greater than what you might just expect on the cuff. And it really meant that you could not deny an accommodation based on a religious belief unless it would result in a substantial increased cost in relation to the conduct of its particular business. Now, that's very similar to the standard for rejecting an accommodation for disability reasons. The language is different, but I think in practice, probably the two are probably closely aligned. So we'll have to see what the as cases get brought up at trial courts and up to courts of appeal, we'll have to see how that decision is interpreted. But in my view, standard now is very similar. And had that happened during COVID, had we had that decision issued then, as you know, many religious accommodation requests were denied, not just in Snohomish County, but throughout the United States, based on the state of the law, and that probably would have been much different had we had that case. So I just wanted to mention that because of how it came about shortly after COVID and hasn't caused any of the upset that would have caused had been issued shortly before. So with that, that's all I have for my legal report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions, commissioners? All right, thank you, Richard, for your report. Unfinished business. Amendment of South County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority Plan for adoption with Assistant Chief Eastman.
Good evening again. So here is the merged plan of Briar and Malt Lake Terrace, which you said needed to be done since both were successful at the ballot. And for the most part, it is truly just the merger of those two documents into the one, which will become the new plan. The one thing I will say is the question was brought up at the last discussion of was it appropriate to keep the ILAs at the time the RFO was formed, i.e. it showed the ILA with Briar, Malt Lake Terrace, Mukilteo, and Edmonds. After discussion with Rich, we actually then removed those in that section. So other than those changes, which took out those ILAs in and I want to make sure in section 4, subsection 2.1, those have been removed, and the only contract or ILA that remains in that is City of Edmonds. And so other than that, the document is truly a merger. There wasn't any notable other things and edits that were made except for those ILAs. So if the board has no other questions, staff is ready for adoption of resolution to adopt the amended plan that incorporates both the city of Briar and Malt Lake Terrace as part of the RFA plan.
Commissioners, any further questions? All right. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution 07052023-20 and amend South County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority Plan.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Rowland. Seconded by Commissioner Farrenhoff. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
If I can just say job well done, guys.
On to new business with the Community Hub Service Agreement with North Sound Accountable Community of Health, North Sound ACH, for action with Assistant Chief Maxwell and Eastman and I think Captain Picknell.
So I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and Sean will take you through the brief, and this is another one where I know Chief Maxwell gave you a brief earlier on this. And as a result of where we are, that brings social workers into play. We're bringing this forward for the board to, I realize formally it's the first time you have seen the agreement and that, but as a result of where we are and the challenges we have out in the street, we're asking the board to also consider allowing Chief to sign this agreement as we move forward. So with that, I'll turn over to Sean.
Thank you. Some of you may remember I kind of brought this up a few weeks ago that we were working on this. And Captain Picknell, who runs our community medic program, and then we have Seanery online. They did a lot of the heavy lifting on this. We would be asking that you would approve allowing the chief to sign the contract, accepting the money, and then Chris Boswell to adjust the budget accordingly. So about 10 years ago, the Center for Medicaid Services started putting out funds and allowing people to color outside the lines to do better with federal healthcare dollars, because a lot of the programs just aren't working. And that's how we obtained the 4 vehicles, the hybrid vehicles for the community paramedics, probably 10 years ago now. So the state was renewed actually June 30th to receive 5 more years of funding. And these programs can color outside the lines of conventional Medicare and Medicaid services. So Seanery and Nicole, that team, we put in for funding to have another daytime community paramedic as well as, and they're not completely, we're losing some other grants or compasses, as well as have 2.5 community health workers. They're like social workers. And so this would fund for 1 year, which it sounds like they will renew for up to 5 years, another daytime community paramedic, and then 2.5 community health workers to basically support, as you know, more work than this team can handle. And so that's basically what we're coming to ask you. And I did, since Nicole came up here, if you're willing, Nicole was telling me a couple, just a couple cases, that one where we've gone on a significant amount. It just shows how we help the individual. And when we help the individual, we help our whole community, and we help ourselves in being more able to respond. But you have to hit the button.
Yeah.
there.
Hello, thank you for having me here tonight. And I think the case we were just talking about is, it's not uncommon for us to have, we call them clients, friendly faces, familiar faces. One that's pretty significant for us when we started to work with him, 110 EMS and fire calls, 66 police calls. Since we got involved, and we're still very involved with this individual, we see him 10 times a year or less. But that wouldn't have happened without our interaction. So that's a very common case. There is another one that was in Linwood's area. We would see that individual 20 times a month through our work. And the thing is when we see them 1 time or 2 times and we go visit them, it's hours and hours of work for our team. But then once we get them placed in the right place, the one that's 20 times a month, it was about 5 months, 6 months of us interacting with the state and social workers. We got her placed in a safe place, and we've seen her once in 2 years.
Wow.
For a fall, something realistic. So that's not uncommon. And we have many, many others. We have one that recently came across our desk that multiple falls, and then we found out he was about to be homeless. We worked with the system. We got him enrolled in the programs, and we got him housing the day he was to be kicked out of his apartment and be a homeless person at 70 years old. And that's within the last month.
Oh,
So those are just
But-
some of the top ones.
Yeah, it gives me shivers hearing about it, because this is happening behind the scenes. So when I say it really helps an individual, and he was a pharmacist, right?
Yeah.
This is a pharmacist that was going to be homeless at 70 years old. And so we are helping that individual. Conversely, that's an engine that didn't roll 100 times. I mean, this is super important work that nobody else is picking up as much as we'd like them to. So to be able to get federal funds to make this program stronger for the next, potentially 5 years is exciting. And I'm glad you got to hear from Nicole, because she works so hard. It's truly yeoman's work behind the scenes. That it is hard to spend hours and hours on the phone with the state or something trying. That's why a 70-year-old just can't get it done. And so this is exciting. This will be no cost to our organization. And these will be community health workers are accustomed to being on 1-year contracts. So if the funding did end, that's their normal routine contractual work. So they won't be surprised, or we won't be hurting anyone. So with that, if you have any questions, asking for you to approve the Chris Bothwell to adjust the budget in according to, I think it says $500,000 in there. It's actually going to be 455. So we'll adjust that in there, and that the chief would, you'd approve allowing the chief to sign the contract to accept the funds. And Rich Davis has reviewed this for us.
thank you. Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion to approve the chief signing the contract.
Second.
A friendly amendment to authorize the fire chief to sign the funding agreement with North Sound ACH, approve a budget amendment in consideration of funding that will be received. Been moved by Commissioner Lawrence and seconded by Commissioner Fahrenhoff. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Rowland?
just want to ask, I know we talked about this, I guess, shortly after I joined the board here, about expanding the community resource paramedic program and trying to figure out what the right size is as we expand, what, where the bell curve is of, as we add more personnel, the amount that we're able to handle starts to taper off, or how it scales. Just maybe, after a year of having these new people on, to try to look at the before and after would be really good, so that we can not only figure out if we need more, if it scales, we need further, or, but also to help inform other agencies that may want to bring on programs like this as to how to right size it so that they're maximizing their investment.
Yeah, I love that. We're
Great.
we're tracking for sure.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kenny.
Yes. Chief, I have something for you. You mentioned that the intent for the community resource paramedic is to be a daytime person. And you and I had discussion during the budget cycle last year about your move to have all of the position, all the community resource paramedics on shift, which they are currently, right?
100%. Yep.
Right,
Yep.
yeah. And I questioned you about some of the logistical difficulties that I saw with that. I haven't heard anything from you about that. I was intending to ask you about that in the budget process when we get back to it, when
Yeah.
you come back in the fall. But
Thanks for-
now you're wanting to put this position on days as opposed to maybe two people on shift the heaviest days of the week. So I want to kind of pick your brain on what are you doing with that? And how does that feed into the positions that are on shift? And why day shift? Because I was advocating for day shift in the budget cycle and you were advocating against it. And now you're advocating for it. So I was curious to find out a little bit
No,
more
that's
about your
good.
thinking.
No, that's good. And I kind of anticipated you might ask that because I remember our discussions. So this, there was always still the need on days and we wouldn't be able, it would take 4 to do. I mean, I guess if we wanted to fund 2 on every shift, but we were only able to fund 1 additional community paramedic. And that will help with the coordination of the 3 community health workers. So it's kind of adding some more of the days, but it really in no way takes away the need for that 24-hour. I just don't know if we need 2. I mean, Nicole would probably take 2, but I don't know that we need 2 24-hour community paramedics at this point on every shift. And I just don't think we could ever get the funding to double that whole program, but we were able to get the funding to give more support and to help support these community health workers or social workers. So that was the route we took. The work is there and it doesn't in any way take away from that 24-hour need whatsoever. It's not detracting from that at all. It's still making the program more robust.
Okay.
But that was very fair question. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
The
Well, it's
the social workers 2.5, from what I can see in the proposal, these are to be employees of South County Fire.
right.
And I thought when we had, I don't know the extent to which we had talked about it previously, certainly not in the context of an actual proposal. And maybe I'm just remembering it differently, that there was a possibility for these individuals to be, and there may be some utility in them being contract employees, contract from another agency as opposed to what they appear to be going to be employees of South County Fire, but like somehow term limited or. So tell me a little bit about how these positions are filled as South County Fire employees and what the expectation is regarding. You indicate the funding is year to year. If the money gets pulled at the end of, let's just say 2024,
Sure.
what are you going to do about those positions?
So we, obviously, as you know, we've had some turnover in the HR division, but the plan previously was to establish these as 1-year contracts. So yes, they're employee, but the expectation it's a year-to-year contract. So we're not tied into that. And I realized the ethos here is we hire people long-term. And we discuss this in in the social worker, the community health worker environment, they're used to year contracts. So they're not going to be, it's not going to feel different to them. But we are going to establish that. So we are not trapped in if the funding was to end. So we are covering that, and I'll be working with our new director of HR to make sure we do that properly.
Okay. You mentioned that the grant funding is up to 5 years. Can you give me any more detail about like,
So
what are the conditions for that? Is there, who's on whose whim is the extension, or is it more or less, if we perform, we'll get the 5 years?
well, it's more the latter of what you said. If we perform, we have a wonderful, the North Sound ACH. We've had a relationship with them for over a decade. Nicole, we have a great relationship with them. And like I said, the federal dollars for CMS, or Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services, trying to get organizations to innovate, to do better with our healthcare system, which we all know is just struggling so much. The state has to apply for these funds, this waiver to allow for that. And we did a 1-year contract because they weren't 100% sure if the state would get reapproved. June 30th, the state got reapproved for 5 more years of this federal funding. And so basically, the head, Liz Baxter, the head of it, we did a 1-year contract, but when I talked to Captain Picknell, for all intents and purposes, the plan is to do this for 5 years.
Okay.
As long as we maintain the program, and is that?
Yes, that's correct.
So in I think it was the 2021 budget cycle, I raised issues and my concerns about the South County Fire subsidizing the cities as you wanted to maintain and expand the community resource paramedic program. Since that time, some of my concerns have been at least mitigated by the fact that some of the cities have come on board as full participants in South County Fire and paying the same rate as everybody else. Not everybody, there's still one to go, but it's moving in the right direction. So my concerns around that are reduced. But there is a secondary piece to it that I at least wanted to raise, which is with these types of grant funding, particularly the one increase of the community resource paramedic, and then the social workers, is essentially department creep. And that is, it's great that it's on contract. And I know last year we also had the contract with Verdant that expanded, I believe, or at least continued. I don't know. There was an expansion of services, but again, by grant. When those run out, then invariably I find the administration comes back to the board and says, well, we gotta have it and find the money. And so that gets hard because it's like, well, it's just a grant. It's like your materials say, oh, it's revenue neutral.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry. But I do look to that longer term and say, well, when it comes to that, what are we going to do? Because I know what you'll do. You'll come here and say, we got to have it for all these reasons. And then it gets hard to say no. So that's not a reason to not do it and to have it prove its efficacy and the value that it can have in providing service. But it is something I keep in the back of my mind. I'm hard pressed to argue because you bring it revenue neutral. It makes it very difficult for me to say no, or we're subsidizing anybody with it. But I am thinking about that end and whether, it's something to think about. So I just wanted to express my, thought in that regard. Although it seems like the opportunity to bring in social workers is a great opportunity to work with other, to work with non-medical people that can provide service, a different service than we are, work as a team to provide the interventions that can make a difference, that can reduce those calls and help people be healthier. That's a unique opportunity, and I think could play out in good ways and maybe even expand in future years. So I think that's moving in a good direction.
Well, I have to say, you've always brought that to the table before we even had the program, and I really do appreciate that. And trust me, when I come back and ask for stuff, it's not without consternation. Because I think your line of reasoning is super logical, and I really don't have an argument against it. I look at it as if for a few years, this one person isn't rolling our engines 100 times, and we can maintain that for 5 years, and then the money goes away, and you do say no, for 5 years, we were able to raise our level of service and have our engines available more often for 5 years, then I feel like you would want me to come and at least ask for that permission.
That's true.
So, and we fully understand that when the funding's gone, you might say no. And I get that it's hard once a program's going. I understand that, but I feel like I would be remiss if we could do it for 5 years, not to at least bring it.
Fair enough.
Hold with Commissioner Fernhoff and then Vice Chair Rowland.
Yeah, sorry, kind of lost my train of thought there. I just wanted to reemphasize that it's not only a reduction in that unit being out of service, but that availability can result in a life saved. And obviously there's a cost savings that cannot be necessarily quantified when our CRPs are reducing the impact on the community by intervention. And the addition of this program, I'm strongly in support of. And I also think if you're looking for grant demonstration, usually it's very difficult because you have to demonstrate either through statistics or something along those lines that the performance of the grant is actually met to the measure of the issuer. But because you also have people attached to this, it'll be much easier, I think, in my opinion, to quantify it through their reporting. So I don't believe there will be an obstacle to that. So I just want to say I'm strongly in favor of the program. And I think in 5 years' time, knowing how tides change and situations change, I don't think we'll necessarily be painted into a corner on any level that we wouldn't be able to navigate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernhoff and Vice Chair Rowland.
Yes, I guess my observation has been in previous conversations that, the numbers of calls saved, the cost associated with them, that these positions, whether or not that they were funded by someone else, have essentially paid for themselves and return on investment as far as time saved, money saved, availability, all of this stuff. So I think the program is great. I do share Commissioner Kenny's interest in scalability and making sure that as we add people on, that they're improving the program, number one, and number two, that as we grow as an organization, not only in the fact that we're expanding in the size and reach of our organization, but also the community itself is growing, that population density, especially with recent changes in the law over in Olympia, will result in higher population densities, even in areas that traditionally didn't see it because of local zoning ordinances. So I think that as we scale, as we grow, anything we can do to keep call volumes scaling along with the community and with our organization, and do so in a way that keeps our costs in control, is going to be a win for our taxpayers. So good luck with the program, and I look forward to voting yes here in a few seconds, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I do see the value in the program. I went down with Captain Picknell and DC Hughes earlier this year to Clark County and learned some more information about how they do things down there. So I see the value of the CRP, or the social worker rather, wearing the fire department brand when they come through the door instead of Compass Health. So I have an additional friendly amendment. The recommended action did not include the resolution number. And so I have an additional friendly amendment to include the resolution number 07052023-21. So Commissioner Lawrence, you had your hand up. Did you want to? Oh, it's already been moved to second. We were doing discussion. And so all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Now, do we
Thank
need
you.
to do a separate one for the budget or is this all? packaged?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, commissioners, and thank you. I really appreciate those thoughts because it helps us think and I really want to recognize Shawnery and Captain Picknell. You want to talk about people with passion? Nobody sees their work behind the scenes, you know. Everyone sees the fire and the big red fire truck and we have to remember we have people behind the scenes working really hard too. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
On to committee updates. Commissioner Chan emailed us saying that he was going to be gone, so his absence is excused. Intergovernmental with Commissioner Fernhoff. Do you have anything?
No significant updates, although that we'll probably still be circling back and talking about Everett at some point in the future. But that will be something that the chief will bring forward as soon as he has some more information.
Thank you. And I have nothing for Snow 911. And so any other commissioners? Commissioner comments? Commissioner Kenny?
For commissioner comments?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, I did have one commissioner comment. The Edmonds 4th of July parade yesterday was very nice. We had a good showing there, and Commissioner Rowland, Commissioner Fernhoff, myself, and Commissioner Chan were there. And I was pleased to see Commissioner Rowland and Commissioner Fernhoff there. They are up for election this year, but they were there, and I feel like they were voting with their feet on that issue, and that was a good thing. I encourage all commissioners, whether you're up for election or not, to come out to any of our parades or open houses or whatever you have, in order to, you know, be with people and see what's happening. It's a good thing. It's never a bad thing. And of course, you have to obey the PDC rules, but that has never been an issue in the past, and I don't anticipate that it'd be an issue in the future. So, I thought it was good, and it was a good parade, nice and warm, and we've got more parades later in the summer. So,
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just have to say that Commissioner Kenny is the best flag waver I've ever seen at a parade. So well done.
what about my waving too?
Expert. Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernhoff.
Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yeah, is our CFO here today?
No, he's not.
Okay, well, yeah, people that got their appraisals from the county, or what do they call that?
Assessment?
Assessment, or assessed value, seems like things went down 15 or 20%. So that's for the staff for next time or sometime this month to discuss how that's going to affect our income here down the road. I know it won't be as much because we have the other funding source that's based on square footage.
So Commissioner Lawrence, we got that initial assessment of the range of decrease of AV across the county. We had it broke down between residential properties, commercial properties, multifamily. So CFO Bothwell is aware of that. One of the things for the board is the fact that we do have, we're not at our max. And so it won't, based on the preliminary work that Chris has done, and I'm sure we'll have more conversations this next week. But the reality is we have capacity within the levy rate. In other words, we're at 72 cents and 32 cents fire and EMS respectively. And so the decrease does not bump, at least the preliminary numbers does not bump either one of those up to the dollar or the 50 cents. And so it will not impact the property tax revenue that we've collected in the past. So we could collect the same revenue plus the 1% and be below both of the limits of the dollar and the 50 cents as we move forward. So we are aware of it, Commissioner Lawrence, and it should not have a negative impact on the revenue from property tax. But we'll have a more in-depth conversation next week and the weeks to come from that, just so you're aware.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you guys made it to the 4th of July parade. This year was my year to have my 3- and 5-year-old, and you can tell them to stay together, and it works for about 30 seconds. And then they go the opposite direction. And I my own stress management, so I chose not to go this year. So I'm glad that you guys had fun. I saw some of the pictures and social media. It looked like it was well attended. Additionally, Commissioner Teal Flack let me know that he was unable to make the meeting tonight. And then also we have the Tour de Terrace coming up here on Friday, July 27th, and the start time of that is at 6 p.m. I do believe Melissa put out an email for everybody in their inbox about that event change. So with that, it is 8 o'clock and I conclude the meeting.